Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with another Books Beside My Bed video. For those of you who are new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up what I read in the last 7 days, and for those of you who are very familiar with these videos, welcome back. This is my reading wrap up from the 14th to the 20th of April. I read 7 books this week. 6 were fiction books, 1 was a non-fiction book. I read 2 YA, 2 middle grade, and 3 adult books. I read a total of 3,153 pages and my yearly reading total is up to 101 books. For those people who are asking, I have been watching a little bit of TV over the school holidays. I have started watching Our Planet, the David Attenborough documentary on Netflix, as well as Star Trek Discovery on Netflix, and I'm enjoying them both. I don't watch a lot of TV generally, so that's sort of what I've been watching. I also finished my OWLS readathon this week and I'll talk about those books in just a minute, and I also started and I'm calling quits on Tome Topple this week as well, but I did read and managed to cover off all of the Tome Topple challenges, so I don't feel that bad about it. I just happen to have a whole lot of things that I need to read in the next week that don't fit any of the readathon challenges and prompts, so I figured I'm just going to have a week to get through some things that I need to read. Okay, so now onto the books. The first book that I finished this week was Lady Helen and the Dark Days Deceit by Alison Goodman. This is the third and final book in the Lady Helen series. It is a 2018 release from Angus and Robertson and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I do really enjoy this series, although it felt like this book just took a long time to get where it needed to go, and I sort of guessed some of the plot points before the ending, well before. But I still enjoy the ride, I still enjoy the characters. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the series, it's sort of like Buffy set in Regency London. Without giving too much away about this particular book, because it is the third and final book in the series, Lady Helen is one of the upper class and she discovers that she is part of a secret world. She has the abilities to reclaim the souls of sort of like these demon characters that inhabit the bodies of others and then feed on the souls of others, and she crosses paths with Lord Carlston, who is a member of the Dark Days Club, and the Dark Days Club's reason for being is to rid the world of these demons, or they call them deceivers. There's also the awesome relationship between Lady Helen and Lord Carlston, which is very complicated because Lord Carlston is married, Lady Helen is about to be married in this book, and it's just a really fun sort of read. It holds the tension in that relationship really well. There's a lot of detail. Alison Goodman has obviously done a lot of research for this book. I highly recommend it if you like your historical fiction and your paranormal, because that's what this fits into, and it's just a lot of fun, but it is a little bit dense, so be aware of that going into it. I read Lady Helen for the OWLS Readathon Challenge, Herbology, to read a book with a plant on the cover. This was the third last book that I had to read for the readathon. Then I read Morningstar by Pierce Brown. I read this for the OWLS Readathon Challenge Astronomy, to read a book with star in the title. I also read it for the Tome Topple Challenge to read the book that's been on your TBR the longest. This is the third and final book in the Red Rising trilogy, or the first part of the Red Rising saga. It was published in 2016 by Hodder and Stoughton and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's no secret I have sort of this love-hate relationship with this series. I don't understand the hype around it, but I did enjoy the final book. Like, overall, I don't mind the characters. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the series, it is sort of a science fiction fantasy story set on Mars. And it is really, like, it is a science fiction story, but to me it reads like high fantasy, and that's probably where I have my biggest issue with it. It follows Darrow, who is a member of one of the lowest classes of people, and he rises up and takes the place of one of the upper class. And then everyone discovers who he is, and there's lots and lots of battles and lots of fight sequences, and I love all that sort of stuff. I love the space battles, but it just read very much like high fantasy. And yes, high fantasy and I no longer get along very well, so that causes me some issues. There are some really good characters along the way. I love Mustang and I love Victra. I love Severus, who is just insane, but I'm glad I'm done with this series. This series is now done. I'm not reading any further, so there's that. Then I read Everything I Do by MC Frank, which is a 2019 release. It is going to be released on Kindle. I received this as a review copy from the author. It is a Robin Hood retelling and reimagining story. It follows Robin Hood and his men who are living in Sherwood Forest, and you have all those characters that you're very familiar with. And the addition to this particular story is that you have Robin's life being saved at the beginning of the story by a teenage boy called Rue, and Rue nearly dies in the process. So Robin and his men take him in and nurse him back to health and encourage him to join their group. but Rue is hiding a secret, and that sort of secret really causes a whole lot of conflict within the group. Rue is actually a girl, and she has been sent to infiltrate Robin's group and try and bring it down from within. This was a fun retelling story. I haven't read very many Robin Hood retellings or reimaginings. I think I've read 1 or 2 over the years, and I do really enjoy the world, so it is very sort of historical fiction retelling like. It's told from 2 perspectives. You get Robin's perspective and Rue's perspective, and I have to say I much preferred Robin's perspective to Rue's. I didn't connect very much with Rue at all, but it was very interesting to see a new take on Robin Hood and to see all those really familiar characters. Like, that's the sort of stuff that I really love. So thank you very much to MC Frank for sending it through to me. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Persepolis Rising by James S. A. Corey. I read this for the OWLS Readathon Challenge Arithmancy, to read a book written by 2 authors. This was my final book for the OWLS Readathon to complete all 12 challenges. I also read it for Tome Topple to read an adult book, because this is a tome, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4 stars. This was published in 2017 by Orbit. It is the 7th book in the Expanse series, and I just adore being back in this world. This particular book takes place some years later. I almost feel like it's almost 20 years later, where after the events of the last book, all of the characters are much older and they have been through a lot, and all of their lives are sort of changing, and they've all got slightly different perspectives now that they've got age and experience on their side, and that was really interesting to read. This entire story takes place as different sides try to battle out for control of the ring and the gateway between Earth and all of the other galaxies. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, The Expanse is an epic space opera that spans many, many years, clearly, and follows the crew of Holden and the Rocinante, and they've sort of been in every single book, but every book you get added perspectives of different characters who you meet, and they sort of just continue to grow in importance across the series. The highlight for me in this series is seeing Avasarala still popping up and still offering political commentary on everything that's going on, and also seeing how Holden's crew has changed over the years, and, you know, having Bobby along. Bobby is awesome. She is a former Martian Marine and just so much fun. So I really enjoy this series. Book 8 is out, but I don't know when I'm going to pick it up because I want to get them all in this size. But there's only 2 more books left in this series. What am I going to do when it's done? I'm going to talk about the next 2 books together because they are books 4 and 5 in a series, and that is Lockwood Co. Book 4 was The Creeping Shadow. Book 5 was The Empty Grave. They were published in 2016 and 2017 by Corgi, respectively, and I gave them both 5 out of 5 stars. This is a middle grade horror series, and I absolutely adore it. It is now complete. I've read the whole thing. There's only 5 books in the series, and it makes me sad, but they did go out on a high note, as Kirsty from Melbourne on My Mind was talking to me about. It was a worthy ending. I read these for the Tome Topple challenges to read a tome in a genre you don't normally read in. I was originally going to read the first Robert Galbraith book, which I've mentally just completely forgotten the name of, but I decided to switch this up, and then I also read it for read a book in a tome in a series. So I've just ticked off all those challenges, and I've ticked off the 5th challenge, which is to read more than 1 tome, because I've read 4. If you haven't heard me talk about this series at all, Lockwood Co, is, as I said, is a middle grade horror story. It follows Lockwood and his team, including Lucy and George, also Holly, by the time we get to these books. They are ghost hunters living in London. 50 years or so ago, something happened and ghosts started invading the human world, and the catch is that only children can see them. As such, organizations have been set up to hunt and destroy ghosts that are headed by adults, but they have to be led by children because only children can see them. The kids in this series get put into some very, very confronting and horrific circumstances, and they're all controlled by adults. However, Lockwood Co is different. It is headed up by Lockwood, who is presumably a teen, but we don't ever get anyone's ages, so this really spans that middle grade to early young adult lens. Obviously, being book 4 and 5 and the concluding books in a series, it's very hard to talk about it, but what I can say is that these 2 books do begin to explore why the ghosts came back, and it deepens the relationships between all of the characters, and I just adore it. Lucy is the narrator for the series for the whole way through. She's fantastic. She grows a whole lot throughout the series, and it is just really, really good fun. And finally, I read one of my NetGalley review copies Infinity in the Palm of Your Hand by Marcus Chow. This is a non-fiction title. I believe it was re-released in 2018 by Michael O'Meara, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a collection of 50 little stories and anecdotes about different scientific topics that explore how wonderful and unique our world is. So you have things from sort of our natural world on the planet, but he also explores topics that happen about space, which is the stuff that I really like. I really enjoyed just reading these little short snippets about science to do with anything to do with space. It's just my thing. Granted, I was the worst possible science student, and I will still am, but I really appreciated this because it made it very easy and accessible to read. I will leave a link to this one down below if you want to check it out. I try to explain it, except I can read and understand what it's trying to tell me, but honestly, if I tried to verbally explain it, it would come out very, very wrong. But it is just little snippets about 50 different scientific topics that would be of human interest pieces to people. So those are all the books that I read this week. Next week, I'm planning on getting through all my review copies. As I said at the start, I've got a whole stack of them banking up, and I just want to get through them before the end of the month, because next month I do have the Bookmon Badgeathon Readathon coming up. So if you have not signed up to participate in that, I will leave a link down below so that you can do that. It is going to be really, really fun. It is based around Pokemon and collecting badges and points and all sorts of things. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm one of the co-hosts. It is being hosted by Megan from Tome Infinity. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of the books that I have read, or if you are planning on reading those. Alternatively, let me know what you have been reading over the last 7 days. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.